Ever been in a situation where someone enforces a rule on you, but lets the person before you slide? And suddenly your whole body says, not today. Ever been in a situation where someone enforces a rule, even if they don't let someone else slide? And you feel, why can't they be a little more chill about this? What's up with this guy? Is he targeting me? If I was in his situation, I would let it slide. It's not that big of a deal. This response isn't just about the rule. It's about what that moment represents. My name is Tiara Click, CEO and founder of When the Mind Clicks, and this is part 2 of a previous video I did titled Emotional Regulation versus Gatekeepers. In this part 2 video, I want to dive deeper into emotional regulation when enforcing rules seems unfair or selectively enforced, or when just the existence of the rule triggers you. This is especially for those with trauma histories, unresolved authoritative wounds, or to those who just relate to what I talked about in part 1. This is not for standard everyday frustration. This is for when it is kind of out of hand and you realize you are being triggered by almost anyone and everyone who enforces a rule or is in a position of being a gatekeeper or perceived authority. In part 1, we talked about how people in gatekeeper positions like bank tellers, store clerks, security guards, or staff aren't the enemy. They're just a moment, a step in the process between you and getting your needs met. We talked about if these individuals have attitude or they talk to you a little out of line and how that reaction might feel and cause you to blow up. But now we're going to talk about even people who aren't being disrespectful or rude. We're going to talk about people who are simply enforcing rules, laws, or regulations. And what happens when it feels personal, when they enforce that rule or restriction and it hits you like a direct attack. Let's get into it and let's see if you can relate or if you know someone who reacts this way. All right, picture this. You walk into a community center with a cup of coffee. Staff stops you at the front door. Hey, you can't have that coffee in here. No drink, food, or beverages. You're frustrated, but okay. But then you get inside and you see someone sitting down reading a book with a smoothie in their hand. And the staff says nothing. Now it's not about the coffee. It's about respect. Your brain screams, why me? What did I do wrong? Am I being singled out, disrespected? And before you know it, you've snapped. Raising your voice, getting kicked out. Your outburst might feel justified, but it's the reaction, not the rule, that's now blocked your access. Maybe instead, think about how you can strategically approach the situation. And before even approaching the situation, consider this. Was this an oversight? Was there a different security on staff before this person came in? Was this a mistake? Or was this even intentional? If I'm still thinking, yeah, it might be intentional, then strategically address the situation without losing your cool and without losing access. Because yelling, storming out, cussing someone out, getting banned, that's not winning and that's not what we want. Next, picture this. You live in a transitional living home. You miss curfew by 15 minutes. Staff tells you you can't enter for the night. Meanwhile, you know someone who came in last week 10 minutes late and they didn't say a word. Your body goes into fight mode. This isn't fair. This is inconsistent. But yelling, threatening, and causing a scene won't change it. It honestly might just put you on their radar even more. Now, not just because of curfew, but because you're volatile. And now they have to keep an eye on the way you react. And then it just reinforces their decision. Now it's not just about being late. It's about your volatility. And their eyes will stay on you because of it. In each of these moments, you weren't just reacting to the person. You were reacting to your history with power, control, or dismissal. When your brain perceives disrespect or injustice, it reacts like you are in immediate danger. But your real power, it doesn't come from exploding. It comes from strategizing. It comes from keeping your cool. Sometimes the most revolutionary thing you can do is stay calm and follow through. I know it doesn't always feel good, but you don't have to show up to every battle you're invited to. And I'm aware there are levels, like walking into a community center with your coffee versus not being let into your transitional living for the night. Those are completely different situations. So I understand and I feel you. But sometimes we just have to reflect on what's going on and allow people to enforce rules, regulations when they feel like they see fit. Sometimes they're not just making up random protocols, and they're not targeting you specifically. And sometimes they are being unfair. But this is about you getting your needs met and keeping access to those things that matter. Your strategy protects your access. Now, so far, everything we've talked about highlights moments that seem blatantly unfair, right? It was me versus them. You treat me this way and not them. Okay? They feel selective and inconsistent. But let's be real. Sometimes the trigger isn't about unfairness at all. Sometimes it's about the existence of the rule or regulation itself, especially when it's being enforced by someone in a position of authority. And if you have trauma around control, power, or injustice, even standard enforcement feels like an attack. So let's talk about a few examples where emotional dysregulation isn't triggered by being treated unfairly, but simply by someone doing their job and following protocol. Picture this. You've been waiting for hours at the DMV. When you finally reach the window, the clerk tells you you're missing one document and you need to come back another day. No exceptions. They're calm, they're respectful, but your body tightens. You know how long you've been waiting here. You know what you went through to get here. You know they have an extra form somewhere back there. At least you think so. You know that if you were in their position, you'd play it cool and you'd let me right on by. But it's not you in this position. It's someone who's holding their job. Yet you still feel dismissed, humiliated, shut down. You think they don't care. They're making my life so much harder. But in reality, they're following policy. You're not being targeted, but your nervous system doesn't know that. So you raise your voice. You walk away angry. You accuse them of being the problem. And now you leave empty-handed and emotionally drained. And depending on the way you reacted, you might not even be welcomed back here when you do complete the paperwork. Now, picture this. You step outside and you see a parking ticket on your windshield. The officer is still down the street, so you ask them why. They calmly respond, or even with a little attitude. They respond though. You were parked during street sweeping hours. You know they're right, but you saw the sweeper pass already. You feel powerless, punished, picked on by the system. You start demanding, arguing, and escalating. Now, instead of resolving the issue, there's tension and possibly legal consequences, and yet another wound added to your day. The reason I gave all these examples is that it's not always the person that triggers you. It's the power dynamic. So be real with yourself and understand if that's what's happening. Rules can feel like rejections. I get that. Enforcement can feel like a lack of control. And when trauma is activated, it is easy to spiral. But when you externalize the system, you internalize calm. Keep your access, keep your power, keep your cool, and keep your progress. Next time, try this. Ask yourself, what do I need to accomplish here? Ask yourself, is my reaction helping or hurting my goal? Is this giving me back time or is this wasting time? Ask, is this building trust or is this burning bridges? Did they do this just to me? Does this have Tiara written on it? They said, oh yeah, I know whose car that is. Tiara drives that car. I'm going to put a ticket on that windshield today. Most likely not. So sometimes you can strategize and address it, and sometimes you kind of just have to roll with the punches and move forward. It doesn't always need to be a protest. And again, you don't always have to show up to every battle you're invited to. This isn't about silencing yourself at all, but it is about protecting your access. It's about protecting your peace, and it's about protecting your emotional well-being. Your voice matters. Your feelings are real. But when a person or a system tries to provoke you out of your peace, don't bite the bait. Your clarity is your loudest response. You can stand up for yourself and walk away with what you came for. That's emotional mastery. That's power. That's growth. Drop a comment below if you've ever been triggered by someone enforcing a rule, or if you've ever felt like your emotions have been hijacked by an authority figure. This is your space to reflect and grow, not to shame yourself. Don't shame yourself. If this resonated, watch it again or share it with someone you know needs to keep their cool when life is anything but easy. And remember, when the mind clicks, so does everything else.